Welcome to a presentation on assertiveness and saying no. We'll be talking about when to be assertive, knowing how to communicate what it is you want, overcoming mental barriers to being assertive, managing some of the emotions that can arise when we think about being assertive, and whether or not to escalate and how to escalate. Now, assertiveness involves communicating clearly, respectfully, and sometimes firmly what it is you'd like to see happen, what it is you'd like to see more of, or what it is you might want to stop or decrease. And assertiveness is a relatively complex skill. It involves deciding when to be assertive or whether to be assertive, knowing what it is you want from the interaction and the communication, knowing how to communicate what you want, overcoming mental barriers you may have to communicating your message in an assertive way, managing some of the emotions that may arise, dealing with the other person's reaction to your message, and knowing when and how to persist or escalate. So when should you be assertive? Well, there are many situations where it's commonly better to communicate what you want openly and clearly, but there are some situations where you may decide not to communicate your preferences. A couple of examples might be when communicating might put you in danger. For instance, if an aggressive person shoves in front of you in a line, or maybe if the other person is very upset, fragile and defensive, you may choose not to be assertive in that situation. Then there's knowing what it is you want from the situation. What exactly is it you want the other person to do or stop doing or think about? And see if you can make it a behaviour. For instance, it could be to bring the food you ordered, turn up on time for a meeting, deliver the project or do what they say they were going to do, replace a faulty item. So there are a number of situations where it may be better to communicate respectfully and assertively rather than just let it pass or be aggressive. Then there's how do you communicate what it is you want. And often people fail to get their message across clearly. Sometimes they put in what may be called just too much padding. I hope you don't mind, and forgive me for asking. I was wondering, and it's not really a big deal, and maybe it's not the right time. Perhaps you might consider, but only if it works for you. So that really just gets in the way of getting what it is you want to say over in a clear way and can be confusing and gives the person lots of opportunity to not really hear you. So some people find it helpful to use the IFER formula. So make it an I statement rather than a you blame statement. So don't say you always do this or you make me feel this, because that can trigger defensiveness in the other person. So for instance, you might then say how you feel. I'm feeling a little bit concerned or confused or frustrated or disappointed or curious or hopeful. So by communicating how you feel, the person shouldn't really be able to deny or attack that. Then you might explain why you feel the way you do, because as we agreed, you said you would, or I thought we were going to, or it's really important to the team. So give an explanation as to why you feel the way you do, and then make your request. So I'd really like you to, I wonder if, I prefer you to, I need you to, we need you to, and then stop talking. So you've got your message across quite clearly and why you want the thing to happen or stop happening, and then allow them the chance to respond. So in case it's helpful to you, we've created a bit of an assertive communication worksheet, which gives you the opportunity to gain some clarity over what it is you want and why it matters to you. Put it into the IFER formula if that's something you choose to do, and even practice saying it out loud in front of a mirror or to someone else. Think about what else might help your message land and be successful, timing and location. Think about how they might respond, how you'll react if they get defensive or aggressive or accuse you of being too emotional, common tactics people might use. And also think about who you might talk to about this to help you think things through. Now, saying no can be good for our health and well-being, because sometimes we feel pressurized or obliged or even bullied to say yes to something, work or a project or helping someone out. And the same approach might apply. Be clear about what it is you want and why. Think about how to say it. You can give a reason, but you don't have to give a reason. Recognise you don't have to take on or fix other people's problems. You have a right to be assertive and stand up for yourself. And sometimes if you want, you can delay a decision by saying, well, let me get back to you on that. Now, sometimes we experience mental barriers that get in the way of us being assertive. Certain beliefs such as, well, they should know what I want, or it's rude to ask, or people like me just shouldn't ask. They won't change, what's the point? They'll call me emotional, and it doesn't really matter. Well, actually it does matter. So more helpful beliefs might be, I have a right to communicate my needs and preferences. My thoughts and opinions matter. I'm just expressing my thoughts. It's up to them whether or not they change. I'm not responsible for the other person's feelings. And if they get cross or upset with me, that says more about them than me. So those beliefs may be more helpful ones to hold if you experience some mental barriers to being assertive. And there are some emotions and feelings that can arise that sometimes get in the way of us communicating clearly. For instance, anxiety may arise. What will they think of me? How will they respond? Will I mess up my message? Sometimes you might be quite angry about the situation or about their reaction to the message. And sometimes you might feel guilt or shame. I shouldn't ask for help. I should be able to do this anyway. I'm a failure for asking. And there are some suggestions in other parts of the toolkit as to how to best manage anxiety, anger, guilt or shame with cognitive behavioural type approaches and also mindfulness type approaches. Then there's how might you best respond to the other person's reaction to your message, because common reactions to you being assertive include the other person, hopefully agreeing to your request, but they might agree to your request and then not do what they said. They could disagree with your request, and that can be okay in many situations. They might suggest another option. They can become defensive and angry, maybe accusing you of being a bully or being emotional. They might choose to change the subject to pull you off balance. They could just ignore what you've said, carry on what they're doing. They could choose distraction and maybe a bit of you blame type. What about when you did this? Some whataboutism. And as I say, they could engage in some labelling. So what are your options here if they don't respond the way you might like? Well, you could just agree that you disagree. You could use a broken record technique. I'll be sharing that with you shortly. Or the fielding technique. You could decide to escalate, or you could just decide that now's not the right time or give up with your assertive message. Very much depends on the context. So the broken record technique, this involves you basically just repeating your message. I still need you to. Yes, but I still want you to. Yes, but I still would like you to. Yes, but I still need you to. So you just continue to repeat your message clearly, respectfully and assertively. The fielding response technique is similar, but first of all, you acknowledge what the person says before then coming back to getting your message across. I know you're busy, but I'd still like you to get this report to me today, for instance. Well, you may well feel this is unfair, but I still need you to talk to John about that issue. Or, I know I've changed my mind, but I still want you to or need you to. So capture what they say with a bit of empathy so they feel heard, but then continue to get your assertive message across. Now, there may be some situations where it's time to escalate and letting the person know what might happen. So, for instance, we've been talking for 5 minutes now and you still haven't told me how you're going to whatever. So I just need to let you know what will happen now. Or it sounds like you're not going to do why. So I just need to let you know that if you don't do this, then by next week, then I need to do this. So I've told you repeatedly it's time to turn up on time to meetings. You've said you were going to and you haven't. And I just need to let you know, because this is so important to me and the team, that if you continue to fail to turn up on time for meetings, then I might have to give you a written warning. Or whatever it might be that you decide is going to be the sanction for non-compliance with your message. And again, it depends on the context. But be prepared for more attempts to undermine your assertive communication. They might accuse you of threatening them, of bullying, of discriminating. Why are you picking on me? So be prepared for how they may come back when all you're doing is communicating clearly and respectfully what it is you want to see happen. So in this brief overview of assertiveness and saying no, a quick summary: being assertive is generally good for health and well-being and performance and team performance. Some people are naturally more assertive than others, but it is a complex skill involving knowing what it is you want, how to communicate it, being able to handle your own emotions, and being able to deal with the other person's reaction to your assertive communication. Saying no to requests can be considered part of assertiveness. Being assertive may not get you what you want, but it increases the chances, and it may help you feel better about yourself because at least you communicated clearly. And some people beat themselves up for being perhaps a little bit too passive or not asking for what they want. So if you've got your message across clearly and it doesn't work out, that can still contribute to personal well-being. Now, there are times and situations where you may choose not to be assertive, and we've looked at a couple of those, but it's definitely something you can get better at with practice.